Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and this was a pretty good movie. It found a better balance of the human characters and their development, and the monster characters and having their fights and their development. So, I kind of enjoyed this one more than the 2014 one. Not that that one was a bad one, but I'm going for a giant monster movie. I would kind of like to see the giant monsters more. Granted, they took more of a Jaws approach and used the monsters more sparingly, but I kind of liked what they did more in this film, where you've got, okay, we got the people, we got them reacting to the situations and what's going on, and we got the monsters doing their thing. So we start off, and we actually are back in 2014 in the aftermath of Godzilla's destruction of San Francisco. And we see this family trying to deal with it, with the father of the family, Mark, shouting for his son, Andrew. And then we cut to present day, and we see that the family unit is kind of dispersed. Mark is not with the mother, Emma, and the daughter, Madison. And they're kind of dealing with their own things. Emma was kind of finishing up some kind of project, and Madison was kind of talking with her father through email and saying that she was worried about her mom. So it's like, okay, we gotta watch out for what's going on with the mom character. And Emma tells her that she's finished whatever she was working on, but as that starts to get wrapped up, we see that the ground starts shaking and everything, and that they're at a Monarch facility where they have one of the Titans captured. And we see this one dude for the research is like excited for what's going on as we're seeing one kind of waking up or being born or whatnot. So we're like, okay, which one's going to be this one? And we see that it is Mothra's one. I'm like, yes, Mothra. I always like, Mothra is one of my favorite ones, and I'm glad to see her popping up in this one. And she, of course, pops up in her larval form, and of course, there's the tense kind of standoff with the humans at first, and then people get antsy with their amped up frickin' super cattle prod taser guns, and she starts spitting her kind of stringy goo stuff at them, and kind of generally just wanting to get the hell out of wherever she's at. And we saw that they had a containment field, but it didn't work for some reason. It's like, okay, that's kind of weird. So Emma pops in and uses her device that she created, the Orca, and was trying to find the frequency that was needed to kind of calm Mothra down. Of course, Madison thinks that she's going to die and rushes in as well, and they're able to get Mothra calmed down. And you get a nice kind of cool moment where Mothra's like, hey, you guys are alright. They're about to kind of, Madison's about to touch Mothra, but then we see an explosion in the back, and we see this kind of paramilitary group led by Tywin Lannister, no less, and he takes out all these people and takes custody of Emma and Madison. It's like, oh, this is interesting. We're going to have to kind of see how this works out. And we cut and we see that Dr. Sarazawa and the rest of kind of the head Monarch group people are pretty much trying to answer questions for the government and asking why this isn't a military operation and why they shouldn't exterminate these creatures. Well, Sarazawa believes that we can cohabitate with these creatures peacefully. And pretty much talking about like a symbiotic relationship. They're like, oh, what? Is Godzilla going to be our pet? And he's like, no, we'd be his pet. And they're kind of laughing at that, but the Titans, as we see throughout this movie, really represent a nature and the balance between nature and man. And it's really not that they are higher on the food chain. They are bigger and can wreak more destruction. Just because we're more technologically advanced doesn't mean that they can't have natural capabilities they've adapted to render most of our weapons useless. So, of course, they find out about Mothra and everything going on, and they're like, okay, we need to get Mark. So they go, they get Mark. He's been like photographing wolves and all that, but they go get him, give him the lowdown that Emma and Madison have been captured by eco-terrorists, and they want to use the Orca device for some reason. And led by Jonah, it's like, alright, we'll have to see how that kind of pans out, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. They bring him to the Monarch base, which is actually pretty cool. You see a frozen Muto head there, and of course they've been tracking Godzilla. Godzilla kind of pops up and gives us a nice kind of scare tactic as he's glowing through the ocean, and then he kind of buggers off, and they're like, what the hell? Track his ass. We have to see where he's going. And when they planned out the routes, they see that it was going to Antarctica. So why is that? And we flip over and we see that Jonah and his group have gone to Antarctica because that's another Monarch outpost with what they've called Monster Zero. And this is, of course, King Ghidorah. It's like, all right, what's your plan here? He starts taking out the Monarch people, and they start getting ready to blast into the ice and unleash Monster Zero, and using the Orca to do that. But of course, Monarch's forces in a kick-ass ship that they call the Argo, which is this giant-ass, like, stealth bomber, has arrived, and they start kind of going through, they've got their forces going through, but they kind of get picked off by Jonah's forces, and they start unleashing King Ghidorah as well, and Mark was there to kind of figure out what he could do. He runs in kind of stupidly, but we kind of understand that he's very protective of his family. He had fallen into like an alcoholic state, and he's trying to make up for that and make sure that he doesn't lose any more of his family, because that's what we've seen both parents kind of go off on. Emma is trying to make sure that what happened to Andrew doesn't happen again in her own way, and Mark has not really dealt with that pain as well. He's actually been separated from the family, and him coming in stupidly actually makes sense. He's trying, I need to do something because I couldn't do something before, because Godzilla's a giant monster. How can he affect something like that big? That's a cool kind of theme of this movie. So he pops in and he like has just a pistol, and they're getting ready to set off the charges, but the person that had it dropped it, and Emma goes up, picks it up, and sets it off. It's like, that's kind of weird. So evidently she's kind of in on this if you read it that way. And of course, all hell starts breaking loose. King Ghidorah gets unleashed, but of course Godzilla pops up at the same point, and it's like, oh shit, this is going to be kind of interesting, because King Ghidorah, of course, has the 3 heads, can fly, and can affect storms in this movie with the lightning and everything that he can shoot out. Godzilla is not able to take him down in this one go. He had to like kind of retreat a little bit, and of course use the hollows of the earth to kind of mess around, and King Ghidorah flies off. We see a few people die off, but Mark and the rest of them are able to get off, and they're like, what's going on? What do we do? And we see that Godzilla's going his own way, kind of around Argentina, and King Ghidorah is kind of doing his thing in a storm. And this is when we see that Emma pretty much does her plot exposition, talking about how she's trying to restore the natural order and wake up all the Titans and promote peace and change among humans that way. It's like, okay, but you really need to kind of think about that, because you really didn't have all the information, because we start seeing throughout, as they're starting research, as we see Dr. Chen doing that King Ghidorah has usually been a primary rival for Godzilla as the apex predator. It's like, you might not want to have done that one. So, we'll have to see how that kind of works out. We see that also Mothra is doing her own thing and cocooning herself in a waterfall to become her adult Mothra form. And a cool little thing is that Dr. Chen has a twin, doing more of a kind of aspect of Mothra's usual thing with the tiny little women that usually do the song and all that. And it's like, oh, that's a pretty nice touch to do it that way. I wasn't expecting that. And I'm like, good on you. So her signal is making it think that she is somewhere in around Mexico, and they kind of fly off because that's another one. They decide to unleash that monster as well, and it is Rodan. It's like, oh shit, that's not good. And this Rodan's got like more kind of fire powers because of the kind of volcanic region that he pops up from. And then they're trying to evacuate everybody, and it's kind of not going well. And then Rodan is kind of doing their own destruction, but they're trying to lure it out to fighting Monster Zero, and all hell starts breaking loose. Like, Rodan and Ghidorah start fighting, but then Godzilla pops up and pretty much rips off one of Ghidorah's head, which was fucking awesome, by the way. But they get word from the military that they're going to use an oxygen destroyer to try and kill these things. Another cool callback from other Godzilla lore when the oxygen destroyer, so we'll have to see how that pans out in the MonsterVerse as well. But they're able to get away in enough time, and it strikes, but it doesn't kill Ghidorah, who's able to regrow their head almost instantaneously and start doing a call that wakes up all the rest of the Titans. It's like, oh shit, that's not good. No, that's not good at all. And Godzilla is really fucked up and has gone down underneath into the hollows of the earth. It's like, oh, shit, we need something to kill this thing. And we see that King Ghidorah is trying to, like, do its own kind of thing. We get more lore behind him in that he's an extraterrestrial monster, not native here, and is kind of messing and mucking with the natural order, making all the rest of the Titans just run rampage around the world. And of course, Jonah doesn't give a crap. Emma's having a crisis of conscience, being like, it wasn't supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be more harmonious. It's like, he doesn't give a crap. It's as accomplishing his objective of restoring kind of balance for what humans have been doing. Madison was evidently in on the plan, but not to this extent, and decides to take the orca herself and go to Fenway Park to try and lure the rest of the Titans, mainly King Ghidorah, to Fenway Park to stop the destruction as much as possible. We also see that they have been able to find Godzilla because Mothra had gotten into her final form and was showcasing where Godzilla wasn't trying to communicate with him, since she evidently is the queen of the monster. Cool. Alright. So Mark and the rest of the team with Serizawa take a submarine and take some nukes and kind of go down to try and see what is going on with Godzilla. And they find this really cool and ancient place, kind of similar to Atlantis, that actually lived harmoniously with Godzilla. And it's just kind of cool. I really hope we learn about this ancient kind of culture at some point in the movie, because that's just kind of ripe for that. It's like, wow, okay. And they see that he's gotten to a point that he's siphoning off radiation from this place to try and heal himself. But of course, it's not working fast enough, so Serizawa decides to sacrifice himself and take the nukes in there and help get Godzilla back into fighting shape in a faster time frame. And I liked his discussion with Mark, because they're kind of talking about kind of forgiveness and kind of accepting the demons that made your old wounds. I really like how he's helping Mark trying to deal with what he's going through and kind of setting it up to be like, okay, listen, I've got to go do this because their weapon systems were damaged and they weren't able to remotely detonate it. And whoever's going in there, it's a one-way ticket. You're pretty much getting destroyed going in there. Now, it was a nice scene as he's getting in there, takes his mask off, takes his glove off. He sets the countdown for the nuke, and he's actually able to touch Godzilla before it goes off. The sub is shot back up, and Godzilla pops up. Mark tells him to just hold off and not make any sudden movements. Godzilla looks at him and then books his way to Boston. And then we get the convergence of pretty much everyone. Emma goes out of the base with Jonah, because Jonah's like, we've already got what we need. You go, but you're not taking any of my men with you. She's going off to find Madison. Madison is pretty much getting screwed over by King Ghidorah as he's trying to destroy the orca, and her in the process pretty much, but that's of course when Godzilla pops up, and we get an epic brawl in Boston, as of course Mark has decided that we are going to help Godzilla and unleash their kind of barrages on King Ghidorah. And it's pretty sweet. They do a good job with this fight sequence, as we see Godzilla using his atomic blast, and we see King Ghidorah using his electric energy blast as well. But of course, Godzilla still has a tougher time of what's going on in the fight. added on to the fact that he's also got a timer because he's going to be going thermonuclear as well. It's like, geez, that's not good. But, of course, we see during the fight that Rodan comes in to help Ghidorah, and this kind of throws Godzilla off a little bit before Mothra comes in and acts like a badass and starts taking on Rodan as well. Now, she does get injured with her wings, but uses a stinger to really fuck up Rodan. And as Godzilla's pretty much on his last legs a little bit, Mothra sacrifices herself to save him. She kind of gets blasted, but yet her essence or whatnot helps to heal Godzilla. And of course, at this point, they've gotten the Orca and fixed it. Everybody's kind of reunited, and Mark and the rest are trying to get off, but Emma decides to sacrifice herself to get King Ghidorah away from Godzilla so that way he can recuperate. And she's able to successfully do this, but she kind of gets fucked up, and Godzilla has reached his kind of thermonuclear stage and is letting off pulses, and that's what's able to give him the power to take down King Ghidorah. And he takes him down bad, starts blasting off his nuclear blasts, which are not enough to kill the people close by, but a pretty big enough radius, and we see him ending pretty much eating ahead of King Ghidorah, and then atomic blasting it and destroying it. I'm like, that's a badass way to do that. That was pretty sweet. And after he's able to kind of unleash the rest of his thermonuclear energy, we see that a good amount of the rest of the Titans are showing up and have bowed to him. Even Rodan. It's like, this solidifies Godzilla as the alpha and the king of the monsters. It's like, alright. Badass way to do that. Really, I'm like, alright. That's a good way to set up the status quo. We then see at the end credits of the movie that Monarch has gone live with all the information about the monsters, and we see different kind of clippings. We see that Mothra's cocooned herself to kind of heal, and she'll be back. We see Kong is brought up, and that he has fought Godzilla before, and the Titans are converging on Skull Island, potentially setting up some kind of Monster Island scenario, potentially, I think. And that's kind of where it ends with that portion. Then we get to the end credit scene, and we see that Jonah is able to talk in Mexico and finds out that there is the severed head of King Ghidorah. So that's setting up, like, are they going to be able to clone him? Are they going to go with the Mecha King Ghidorah route? I liked where they ended. He's like, yeah, alright, let's see how this goes. So I liked the action scenes that were done. I kind of liked how we were given enough character development to be worth the story with the humans, like Mark coming to terms with what's happened, and that these Titans are now going to be forces that humans are going to have to coexist with. Madison having to deal with what her mother had done, and she'll probably be a bigger force with her father. I don't know if her father will potentially take over as Monarch, take over the organization of Monarch, and to fill in with Serizawa's role, because Serizawa had given his notes to him. So we'll kind of have to see how that works out. But I liked it. We got the humans kind of reacting to what the monsters were doing, and just really good monster fights. And I can't wait to see what they do with like Godzilla versus Kong and any other plans that they've got with it. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.